Hey guys, this is Fulton at LASR, Lute Air Student Radio. This is Fulton's music room. This is a special edition. Today is Monday, October 26th. I'm recording this a day early because I am very busy tomorrow morning. Anyways, I'm on the road, on the bus, and as you can hear, there's lots of cars outside. Anyways, this episode is 100% digital. I just got back from the Neeb Center, our studio space, and I'm not home. I'm at my brother's house. So I was able to train some people and get LASR back on the road somewhat. Anyways, some of my favorite albums I listened to digitally over the last week have been Testing by A$AP Rocky. I haven't listened to this album in a very long time, but it's really good. I'd like to point to the production. It's marvelous, it's mind-blowing, it's simplistic but great. I listened to this on Spotify, of course. A$AP Rocky on Testing, his lyrics are really great, as always, intertwining, fashion, culture, personal life, and experiences throughout his life. And then sonically, it's very strong. The experimentation A$AP Rocky goes through with this album is so much different than his others. I'm a big fan of his first mixtape, Peace, Love, A$AP, I believe. It just shows how unique of an artist A$AP Rocky is. Next, I listened to all of Jacob Mann's releases on Spotify so far. The first being 106 by Jacob Mann himself. It's just a jazz album that he did, but it combines a little bit more of like funk, hip hop, all that kind of jazz, quite literally. And then up next, I listened to his two big band albums, Volume 1 and Volume 2. These are like just super short and accessible, but the things that Jacob Mann develops through his orchestration and arranging is like very unique and experimentational and in a genre where you wouldn't expect this type of content. The way my buddy Eric and I described it is that it's both foreground and background music, which is something really rare, personally, to experience in music today. Either something has your attention or either it doesn't, or it's just in that gray area where you're like, should I really be listening to this? Also, I listened to some technical death metal. I finished a project to this, Where Owls Know My Name by Rivers of Nile. Super heavy, the drumming, double bass drum is just in your face. And then it's kind of just tied to everything. There's some jazzy sections to it. There's a lot of horn and like orchestral stuff in it at times. I was recommended to this band by a coworker. I'm kind of glad I checked it out finally. It's like a storytelling album, so it's complete as a whole. I wish I could show you what it looks like. The album art's awesome. I'd say it's definitely accessible for technical death metal, lyrically and like the phonics, pronunciation, how the singer articulates themselves. It's definitely more accessible than most stuff out there. And then like instrumentally, it's very accessible. It's not some dude yelling about babies or just chugging on his 8-string guitar, or their 8-string guitar. Another like more out-of-the-box accessible album I listened to was Glassworks by Philip Glass. I would study this album last year quite a bit. Philip Glass has on the record said that like this is something that he wanted to make accessible and bring out to all of his listeners, which I think is really interesting. Philip Glass is a technically skilled fellow. It's very cohesive. It starts and stops, and it goes all over the place. It has its ups and downs, emotionally, not technically or musically. It's a very strong album by Philip Glass and a very good starting point if you're looking to get into his work. He made it accessible but technical for a reason. Up next, I'll listen to Roots Radic meets King Tubby, or King Tubby meets Roots Radic, either or the order. Dangerous Dub. This is like one of the most legendary dub albums of all time. The song titles just make no sense, like Heavy London Dub, shepherd's bush dub. Like, I can't tell if they're poking fun at the cultural appropriation of reggae and Jamaican music by British people in the late 60s to early 80s. It's an interesting topic to be had, because you can look at groups like the Police or the Clash that made reggae more popular just because they're white and from Europe appropriating music that's been around for longer than 10 years before them, and that's been grooving along well. I don't know, it's hard to tell because they were actually into that music, but the way that British culture has interpreted it definitely leads to some cultural appropriation, in my opinion. Up next, after King Tubby, he's legendary, I listened to Alive in America by Steely Dan. This is from live cuts from their 1993-1994 tour, which is the first time they got together in a while. It's their first time they played a live show since 1974, so about 20 years or so. Definitely something interesting. You can definitely tell on some of the songs where it's not the studio version. Peg without Michael McDonald just doesn't sound right with his backing vocals. But overall, it was pretty fun, and you can tell definitely how studio perfect of a band Steely Dan is with this live cut. And it also tells you how seriously they take themselves when performing, isn't in the aspect of we want to get this right, we want to give you the best show possible and not cop out and be clumsy with our playing and our art. They're jazz, fusion, rock, they're that strange profusion and amalgamation of so many genres, but they're playing with, music stands on stage. That's something you don't really see. It'd be interesting to see groups like Pearl Jam or Metallica with, a music stand on stage, and, I don't know if they can read music exactly, but even if it's just tablature, it'd be a very interesting thing to witness if that was the standard for all of our, popular forms of music. Up next, I listened to Beans and Cornbread. If you don't know who Beans and Cornbread are, you most likely don't live in Houston, Texas, or listen to the band Krungben. Beans and Cornbread is a collaboration between Donald T.J. Johnson Jr., drummer of Krungben, and longtime friend and church player Cornbread. I've actually forgotten his real name, and I've talked to him over the internet before. My deepest apologies, Cornbread. I listened to their new album H-Time 2. It's kind of hard to explain. It's lo-fi hip-hop production with intense keyboard, but not, it's very textural. It's not shredding straight up. Personally, I think what they're getting at is just the influence of all the things around them, and maybe if I was someone who lived in Houston, I'd understand it more. And it makes me actually like to think about the mundane and how much we discredit the mundane, but how actually influential and how it shapes our life. Even me sitting here with this boring white wall, I can look at that and I can become creative, even though it's boring. There's so many things that we take for granted every day that shape our lives, whether we recognize it or not, which I think Beans and Cornbread is doing really well with. And that's one thing, is that all of their music that they've put out, these Offside series and H-Time, are serial, as in multiple. They're doing a great job of bringing in a cohesive story about this place around them that I definitely wouldn't be able to experience without it, as someone that lives in Washington State. Yeah, and it also reminds me of Ernest Hood. He is from Portland, Oregon, or was from Portland, Oregon. I don't know if he's still around, but he did a similar ambient album like that, where he was interacting with the sounds of where he is living in Portland and adding keys and all these different samples and stuff to it. It's definitely worth checking out. It just came back in, got repressed last year, actually. Anyways, that has been Fulton's Music Room for Monday, October 26th. I'll see you next week on our regularly scheduled program, which will be in November on Election Day. Keep rocking the free world, friends. I hope you're healthy, safe, and fun, having fun the best you can. Love everyone around you, and be sure to respect tribal land. Thank you.